In the past, when my viewers have asked me what my favorite kinds of lost media are, I always answer with the usual topics, like cartoon pilots, animation in general, and a little bit of video game content too. While I still think these are my favorites, I might have to make room for another category: lost commercials. I gotta say, I was never a big fan of lost commercials or advertising material back in the earlier days of the community, and while I became more aware that they existed, I never found myself searching for them, or even wanting to bring them up in discussion. I feel like that's the result of not finding topics that were interesting to me, but that's certainly changed over the years, with great searches like the Subway Perfection ad and Encarnacion de Chavez from the Philippines, to name a couple. There are even smaller examples from Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, which I've mentioned in older videos, so it's an area of content I keep a lookout for. And oh boy, I've come across several more lost commercials that have been gaining some attention lately, not only for their content, but the stories surrounding the search. It's kind of the perfect mix of content that I never expected to find all in one place. So with that said, let's jump into the topics and start with the one that became a large inspiration for the video, as well as being an extremely rare piece of lost media. I would argue that lost commercials and the Lost Media Wiki are almost synonymous at this point, because it seems like the community is quick to pick up on any kind of advertising, and that's pretty cool. Well, the other day, I was browsing the forums as I often do, and came upon a thread that had just been made recently, and immediately caught my attention, not only for the kind of content it described, but also for its rarity, as the story surrounding this commercial baffles me. The thread is titled "Pokemon Commercial It Takes Two," and describes a piece of advertising that was used to promote the double battle system in Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire versions, allegedly airing on TV around 2003. What makes this commercial so unique, as the recollections claim, is that it was performed by Veronica Taylor and Rachel Lillis, the voice actors for Ash and Misty respectively, singing a reworded version of the 1966 single It Takes Two. As the thread states, the song itself actually isn't lost, and has been circulating the internet since the early 2000s. The Bulbapedia article even has the lyrics from the song, and you can hear it for yourself. Though curiously, it was never released officially on any Nintendo soundtracks. The real mystery here is finding the commercial that the song was used in, which seems to have a bit of strange history in itself, according to mentions of it online. The discussion page on the Bulbapedia article states that Pokemon fans have been aware that the commercial has been missing since as far back as 2008, when a post mentioned that the song was popular to use in AMVs, but the commercial was nowhere to be seen. Several months later, a reply was posted which gives us even more insight about the commercial, and it's surprising to hear that anyone was able to watch it in the first place. At New York Comic Con, Veronica Taylor was asked about the song, and claimed that it was an in-house production, acting surprised that anyone was able to hear it in the first place. We know the MP3 has been shared in the community for years, but considering Veronica's reaction about a fan having heard it, this means the track must have been leaked by someone at 4Kids. And this directly relates back to the commercial itself, because for Veronica Taylor to have been surprised that a fan heard the song, that means the commercial it was used in couldn't have been very widespread either. We have a few details about this too. There's a mention in the discussion that a site called PPN had claimed the commercial aired 2 or 3 times on Kids WB, but the specific time frame is unknown. Interestingly, Veronica Taylor also mentions that PPN used to have the commercial, and when contacted about it back in 2008, claimed they no longer do. Going back to the Lost Media Wiki thread, there are a couple additional details about the search that are worth pointing out. One is that a recording of the Pokemon Advanced sneak preview event from March 15, 2003 was looked through and the commercial is not there. You might think that it would make sense to air a Pokemon commercial during the Pokemon anime, but as stated in the Bulbapedia talk section, PPN claimed that the couple times it did air were never during Pokemon, and checking that premiere upload likely proves it. The second detail to point out is why Misty is being used to promote Ruby and Sapphire, which might lead to some confusion about its legitimacy. At the time, the current Pokemon dub was only at Master Quest, which takes place in the games before Ruby and Sapphire, so it's believed they went with Misty as May's character and voice were not yet finalized. This time frame lines up to March and early April 2003, so if you have any recordings of Kids WB from this era, check them. You might be sitting on some incredibly rare Pokemon Lost media. It probably wouldn't be a real Lost commercial video without something from a cartoon channel, and what better series to cover than SpongeBob SquarePants. He's definitely no stranger to Lost commercials and interstitials, with Astrology with Squidward being one of the more notable searches from a few years ago. This time, however, it's a little bit of a crossover with two different forms of media, and that doesn't happen too often, so the topic is even more interesting. This was another one of my finds on the Lost Media Wiki forums before it started reaching other communities: the search for a lost SpongeBob chocolate milk commercial. The first post mentioning this commercial is from December 2010, over a decade ago, on the SB Mania forums, and shows a print ad of SpongeBob and Patrick drinking chocolate milk. There's no other context and nothing else to see in this print ad, but further on in the thread, a user named Sponge Sebastian states that they remember seeing a TV commercial of the print ad, and concludes with SpongeBob putting his entire head in the glass, a scene not depicted in the print version. This is replied to a day later by someone stating the commercial is not online, and it seems to have stayed that way, as a thread from the Lost Media Wiki forums started in December 2021 also makes mention that the commercial is lost, and links the original SB Mania thread. However, it wouldn't be until many months later, in August 2022, when Sponge Sebastian makes another post and, for the first time, includes a screenshot of the commercial. This is the first visual evidence of the commercial that's appeared, though according to a press release dated 2001, the commercial is actually over 20 years old. However, there are a lot of questions raised about the origin of this screenshot, as it implies that some of its content must have been online at one point. Its quality also appears to be that of a rip from a VHS tape, but no one knows where it came from. There's a little bit of speculation in the thread about that, with it being mentioned that the image was uploaded anonymously to a Discord server, though this is disputed by a member of that server, suggesting if someone had the full ad, it would have been posted by now. It's not known exactly where this image came from, and I did a little looking around to see if there was any other discussion about it, but the threads already mentioned here seem to give the most insight. No one else has any important details or specific leads on where a copy could be, though considering the screenshot exists online and looks like it was taken from a VHS tape, I have a feeling the commercial is already online somewhere. And I can kinda back that up with a memory of having watched it myself. When I first took a look at the screenshot after being told about the topic, it seemed so familiar to me, even though I had never seen it on TV before. Several months ago, when I was looking through Nickelodeon commercial compilations on YouTube, I'm almost positive I had come across this commercial in a video, and had no idea it was lost. I jokingly thought to myself that since it's an obscure piece of SpongeBob media, I wouldn't be surprised if someone ends up looking for it. Meanwhile, I came across it by accident. I had no idea there was actually a search for it, and wish I had saved it. I even went through my search history, but couldn't find it again. If the screenshot that resurfaced isn't from a copy that someone in the community has, then there's a chance that someone could find the copy that I believe I watched on YouTube. I'll be on the lookout for it again too, and if I ever find it, I'll be sure to share it this time. This next topic is one that I found particularly interesting for the fact that it finally lets me talk about content from a subculture I haven't really been able to research yet. The content from the old days of Chuck E. Cheese and Pizza Time Theater. It must have been many years ago at this point, but I had come across the existence of Showbiz Pizza for the first time, and went down a rabbit hole of how the old Rockefeller explosion started out and evolved over the years, until its eventual discontinuation. For a really long time, I had an unnamed Showbiz Pizza video on my topic list, but I never figured out what it was I wanted to discuss, so the project was never made. Today though, we can get into that a little bit by talking about some Chuck E. Cheese lost media, and one that has a pretty cool trail of evidence left in its absence. Shoutouts to my viewers for bringing this to my attention during one of my live streams. There exists a vintage Chuck E. Cheese commercial from back in the day that no one has seen since and is currently being searched for. Now you might be wondering how a lost commercial from over 40 years ago was even remembered, which is where the mystery begins. User I'm Not Jonathan was on YouTube browsing videos and came across a tour video of Smitty's Super Service Station, which is essentially a fan-made museum of Chuck E. Cheese memorabilia. I've actually come across videos of the collection in passing too, but it took a keen eye to uncover a piece of lost media hidden in plain sight. Around 50 minutes into the video, collection owner Damon Breland shows a book containing animation cells from a commercial and a newspaper clipping having mentioned an animated Chuck E. Cheese TV spot. These two pieces together prove the existence of a lost commercial that was made for TV, the cells being the only visuals we have from the commercial, and the newspaper write-up proving it does exist. While details about it are hard to come by, some members of the community have uncovered a few important details, like Ian Salgado, who mentions it aired locally in California sometime around the 1980s and was 30 seconds long. Apparently, it advertised birthday parties. This is evidenced by an employee newspaper from December 1979 that mentioned a 30-second commercial that would be airing on TV, and similarly, a 1979 brochure that mentions the ad as part of an advertising package. While there are no other visuals that accompany these write-ups, many of the cells themselves have been scanned and strung together to give us some kind of idea about its animated content. There's also an idea on what company animated the commercial. It's speculated that Colossal Pictures had a hand in it, though an artist who drew comics sold in Pizza Time Theater restaurants is believed to have worked on the storyboards, as some of the animation looks similar to the art style. But perhaps one of the most important pieces of information that's been acquired for this search is where it aired. We know that it was a local commercial from around the 1980s, but that implies it only ran in a certain area, and probably not for very long. Yes, indeed. It's believed to have only been aired for a couple months in the Stockton and Huntington Beach areas of California, and a list of TV stations were archived and compiled for reference. If anyone has lived in these areas, let the community know, as that would be one of the best ways for the commercial to resurface. Most Pizza Time Theater restaurants were located in this area at the time, so the ad having aired there makes sense. But the option to get in touch with the animation company is still a possibility, if Colossal Pictures has any archives that still exist, as the company went defunct in 1999. I actually did a little looking into this, and it seems like they were absorbed by bigger companies, but had a huge body of advertising work, so I would be surprised if there were no other trails to look over besides VHS tape recordings. I'd like to take some time to revisit an older topic that hasn't been discussed in quite a while, so it would be good to get some new eyes on this search. Not only that, but we've uncovered some new information about it which could help us find a copy. Maybe some of you guys even have recordings of this. The topic I'm referring to is the Oswald Ozzy Osbourne crossover, which finally has an article on the Lost Media Wiki, though it's incorrectly listed as existence unconfirmed. Let me explain, since it's been a while since the topic first appeared. This was something that fellow Lost Media YouTuber Seeker of the Lost made a video about a couple years ago. It describes a commercial that takes clips from the Nick Jr. show Oswald and redubs them with audio from the MTV reality show The Osbournes. The premise for the commercial is really strange, and it's something that upon first glance you'd think was made up. In fact, for years the existence of it wasn't even known. It was only after a couple Reddit threads recalled the crossover that people took notice and the search began. This was a topic I was really obsessed with and still am, looking over the details and possibilities for where a copy could be found. The claims ranged a little in terms of when it aired, some stating it was the late afternoon, while others claimed it was later at night, or even during a big event like the Kids' Choice Awards. However, all of the recollections seem to have one thing in common. There was a voice clip from Sharon Osbourne that Seeker was able to source from the first couple episodes of the show. We used this as a base to try and pinpoint a possible date for when it aired, believing it was between 2002 and 2004. This led to a pretty big search effort, looking through commercial breaks and contacting audio editors for Oswald. I was even able to get my hands on all 3 Kids' Choice Awards from our time frame, but in every case we came up empty-handed. Eventually, Seeker ended up contacting the creator of Oswald and asked about the crossover, where he confirmed it existed and suggested that it aired during a Nickelodeon event, but was unsure of the specifics. We couldn't figure out what special event the creator could have been referring to. I thought the Kids' Choice Awards fit this perfectly, but we already looked through them all. I had made a thread on the forums months before, and updated it with progress of the search. I decided to add the information that the creator had told us, hoping it would give us a new lead, and that's exactly what happened. The time range on the crossover was 2002 to 2004, so forum user Furby Island commented that in 2003, Nickelodeon revived the Noggin block for a single day on April 7th to advertise the restructuring of Noggin's lineup. Oswald also premiered on Noggin the same day. Not only did this fit into the idea of a Nickelodeon event that the creator had mentioned, but I noticed that the Wikipedia page for Noggin described its style as sick and twisted, having been very teen-oriented at one point. The crossover seems to fit all of these, and has led us to believe that it could have been aired during the Nickelodeon revival block of Noggin on April 7, 2003. The block also played for the entire day, which means it could have aired at several different points, and explains why the range of times when it aired goes from afternoon to night. Currently, we have not been able to locate any recordings from that day, though a variety of Nickelodeon and Noggin commercials have already been looked through. A schedule archive for the block even has time frames from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., which could also be a good time to air something like this. If you have recordings of the block from that day, or specifically from these time slots, the crossover commercial might be in there. Though this is currently speculation based on evidence, and there's a chance it might not be there. If it's not, we'll have to go back and try to find more Nickelodeon events. It's kinda hard to believe nothing new has been discussed since earlier this year, with how popular Nickelodeon Lost Media is. I was hoping something would have shown up, but for now it seems like we're on the right track. I think that's one of the coolest parts about searching for lost commercials. It's not as specific as looking for a lost pilot or having to contact a creator about a piece of work. Commercials were aired publicly, and the time frame of them is different and varied. It makes the search for each one more rewarding, and even a bit of a challenge. If you guys have any more requests for lost commercials you'd like me to cover, let me know in the comments and I'll incorporate them into future Lost Media videos. If you have any information about the commercials discussed here, let us know about those too. but until these are found, they'll definitely remain a mystery. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other Lost Media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.